February 1957, Philadelphia. A bleak discovery sent shivers down the spines of seasoned detectives. A cardboard box, discarded like unwanted refuse, held the lifeless body of a young boy. His age? 4, maybe 6. His story? An utter mystery. This wasn't just another case. This was different. This was personal. This was the boy in the box. The boy's body, malnourished and bearing signs of abuse, spoke of a life cut tragically short. He was naked, his hair crudely cut, as if in a hurry. Who could do such a thing? The image of the boy, his innocent face forever frozen in time, haunted the city. The police, the press, and the public were all desperate for answers. Who was this child, and who could have committed such a heartless act? The discovery sent shockwaves through the community. This wasn't a city accustomed to such horrors. This was personal. This was one of their own. The hunt for the boy's identity and his killer became an obsession. Every lead, every whisper was meticulously pursued, but the mystery only deepened. The investigation started strong, a flurry of activity and hope. Detectives followed every lead, interviewed countless people, and scoured every inch of the city. But the case quickly turned cold. Dead ends met them at every turn. The boy, it seemed, was a ghost. No missing person report matched his description. No one came forward to claim him. Days turned into weeks, weeks into months. The trail ran cold. The boy's face, plastered on missing person posters across the city, became a haunting reminder of the unsolved crime. Theories abounded, each more outlandish than the last. Was he a runaway from a traveling circus? A victim of a vengeful ex-lover? The speculation was endless, but the truth remained elusive. Amidst the dead ends, a few leads offered a glimmer of hope. One witness claimed to have seen a woman with a young boy matching the victim's description near the dumping site. Another mentioned a suspicious-looking man lurking in the area. But these accounts were often contradictory, riddled with inconsistencies, and ultimately led nowhere. Years later, a woman named Martha came forward with a chilling tale. Her voice trembled as she recounted the events that had haunted her for decades. She claimed to have knowledge of the boy's identity and the circumstances surrounding his death. Martha's revelations were both shocking and heartbreaking, painting a picture of a life filled with unimaginable suffering. According to her, the boy's name was Jonathan, and he was the victim of horrific abuse at the hands of his own mother. The details she provided were harrowing, describing a young boy who lived in constant fear and pain. Martha painted a grim picture of a household shrouded in secrecy and violence. The home, she said, was a place where darkness reigned, and the cries of a helpless child went unheard. Martha's story, though disturbing, was compelling. Her emotional recounting of the events left the police and investigators deeply moved and eager to uncover the truth. She provided details about the boy's life, his habits, and the abuse he allegedly endured. Martha spoke of Jonathan's love for drawing and how he would often retreat into his imagination to escape the horrors of his reality. She even described a specific type of bassinet, one that was later confirmed to have been used by the boy's family. This piece of information seemed to lend credibility to her story, making the investigators hopeful. Could this be the breakthrough they had been waiting for? The detectives pondered this question as they meticulously examined every detail Martha provided. Could Martha be the key to unlocking the mystery of the boy in the box? Her intense and emotional testimony suggested she might hold the answers they had been seeking for so long. The police listened intently, their hopes rising with every detail Martha revealed. Each new piece of information seemed to bring them closer to solving the case. Her story, though difficult to hear, offered a plausible explanation for the boy's injuries and his abandoned state. The investigators felt a mix of hope and sorrow as they pieced together the tragic narrative. But as the investigation progressed, doubts began to creep in. The initial excitement gave way to skepticism as the detectives scrutinized Martha's account more closely. Martha's story, while detailed, lacked concrete evidence. The investigators needed more than just words to confirm her claims and bring justice to Jonathan. Her claims, though horrifying, were just that, claims. Without tangible proof, the case remained shrouded in mystery, leaving the investigators with more questions than answers. The search for the truth continued, as the detectives vowed not to give up. They knew that somewhere, hidden in the shadows of the past, lay the key to solving the mystery of the boy in the box. The case, though cold, was far from forgotten. The dedication of the investigators and the haunting testimony of Martha ensured that the boy's story would not fade into obscurity. As they delved deeper into the case, the detectives hoped that one day they would uncover the truth and bring closure to the tragic tale of Jonathan, the boy in the box. Section 4. The Psychic's Vision and a Foster Home's Secrets. In a desperate attempt to break the case wide open, the police turned to an unlikely source: a psychic. This was not a common practice, but the case had reached a dead end, and they were willing to try anything. While some scoffed at the idea, others clung to the hope that she might provide the missing piece of the puzzle. The community was divided, with skeptics and believers both watching closely. And, to their astonishment, she did. The psychic's eyes widened as she connected with the boy's energy, revealing details that no one had shared with her. The psychic, after touching the boy's belongings, described a house that sent chills down their spines. She spoke of a place that seemed to hold the key to the mystery. The house, she claimed, was a foster home. It was a place where many children had passed through, each with their own stories and secrets. It was a place of sadness, of secrets, and of a boy who desperately needed help. The psychic's voice trembled as she described the emotions she felt from the boy's belongings. She described the layout of the house, the furniture, even the scent of lilac that permeated the air. Every detail she provided painted a vivid picture of the place. The police, armed with this newfound information, embarked on a search for the house from the psychic's vision. They combed through neighborhoods, looking for any sign that matched her description. And, to their surprise, they found it. The house stood eerily similar to the one the psychic had described, down to the smallest detail. The house matched the psychic's description with uncanny accuracy. It was as if she had been there herself, seeing through the eyes of the boy. It was indeed a foster home, and it had housed several children who matched the boy's age and description. The police felt a mix of hope and dread as they approached the house. The police interviewed the foster parents, their hearts pounding with anticipation. Could this be it? They asked questions, trying to piece together the boy's story from the fragments they were given. Had they finally found the answers they had been searching for? The tension was palpable as they waited for the truth to unfold, hoping that this lead would finally bring closure to the case. Section 5. Unraveling Threads. The case turns cold. But just as quickly as hope had blossomed, it withered and died. The initial surge of optimism that had fueled the investigation began to fade, replaced by a growing sense of frustration and despair. The detectives, who had once been so sure they were on the right track, now found themselves grappling with the harsh reality that the answers they sought might never be found. The foster parents, though evasive at first, were eventually cleared of any wrongdoing. Their alibis checked out, and their stories, though initially inconsistent, were ultimately deemed credible. The police had hoped that this line of inquiry would yield the breakthrough they so desperately needed, but it was not to be. There was no evidence linking them to the boy's death, no smoking gun to tie them to the crime. The lack of physical evidence was a significant blow to the investigation. Every lead seemed to end in a dead end, and every promising clue turned out to be a false hope. The psychic's vision, though chillingly accurate, was not enough. Despite the eerie details that matched the crime scene, the vision lacked the concrete evidence needed to move the case forward. The detectives were left with more questions than answers, and the trail grew colder by the day. The case, once again, hit a wall. The momentum that had driven the investigation ground to a halt, and the sense of urgency that had once permeated the police department began to wane. The detectives, though still committed, found themselves struggling to maintain their focus and determination. The investigation, once a raging fire, dwindled to embers. The passion and drive that had fueled the detectives began to fade, replaced by a sense of resignation. The case that had once consumed their every waking moment now seemed destined to remain unsolved. Years turned into decades, and the boy in the box remained an enigma. The passage of time only served to deepen the mystery as memories faded and witnesses passed away. The case that had once been the talk of the town became a distant memory, a cold case that seemed destined to remain unsolved. The leads dried up, the witnesses faded into the background, and the case files gathered dust. The detectives who had once been so dedicated to solving the case found themselves reassigned to other investigations, and the boy in the box became just another unsolved mystery in the annals of crime. The police, though reluctant to admit defeat, had no choice but to accept the grim reality. The case had gone cold, and the chances of finding new evidence or witnesses seemed slim. The detectives who had once been so hopeful now found themselves grappling with the harsh reality that the answers they sought might never be found. The boy's identity and the circumstances surrounding his death remained a mystery. Despite the best efforts of the police and the community, the case remained unsolved. The boy in the box became a symbol of the unknown, a haunting reminder of the fragility of life and the darkness that can lurk in the shadows. The city of Philadelphia, once united in grief and outrage, slowly began to move on. The case that had once captivated the entire city became a distant memory, a cold case that seemed destined to remain unsolved. But for those who had been touched by the tragedy, the memory of the boy in the box remained a haunting presence. But the boy in the box was not forgotten. His memory lingered, a haunting reminder of the fragility of life and the darkness that can lurk in the shadows. The case may have gone cold, but the quest for justice continued, driven by the determination of those who refused to let the boy's story be forgotten. His memory lingered, a haunting reminder of the fragility of life and the darkness that can lurk in the shadows. The case may have gone cold, but the quest for justice continued, driven by the determination of those who refused to let the boy's story be forgotten. And for those who had dedicated their lives to solving his case, the quest for justice continued. The detectives who had once been so hopeful now found themselves grappling with the harsh reality that the answers they sought might never be found. But they refused to give up, driven by the belief that one day the truth would be revealed and the boy in the box would finally be given the justice he deserved.